So maybe you saw my previous video about solar invis, and now you're wondering, with the new solar 3.0, does it still work? Well, the answer is yes, even better than before. In the previous build, I had a cycle of things that made the build work. You shot your Tikus, you threw your grenade, you threw your melee, you dodged, and you just keep doing that over and over. Well, to be able to get invis now, all you gotta do is melee, 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 grenade, melee, 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 maybe dodge, melee, melee, melee. And every time you throw a melee, if you get a kill, you go invis. So let's set up the solar subclass real quick. For dodge, Gambler's Dodge. If you dodge near an enemy, you get your melee fully refunded, because if you ever lose your melee, you want to be able to get it right back. For melee, just like before, we're going to use Knife Trick. It still burns enemies like it used to, but now it's called Scorched. For a grenade, I suggest Thermite or Solar Grenade. They both work, but I feel like Solar is better, even though Thermite does have a shorter cooldown. For aspects, we'll use Knock 'em Down and Gunpowder's Gamble. Knock 'em Down enhances your supers, but more importantly, while you're radiant, if you get a melee kill, it fully refunds your melee back. So this is where things start to get different from the build we had before. Previously, we had to wait for our melee to charge back when we were getting stacks of playing with fire. Now we could just get our melee back instantly just by being radiant when we get the kill. The other aspect is just to increase the fun factor and the boom factor, to be honest. You get a special grenade, which I like to call the super frag, which when you throw it, you can shoot it out of the air and it does a lot of damage. It also applies ignition, so it's a win-win. Now let's talk about the fragments. First up, we're going to use Echo of Sinjin, which gives class ability energy whenever enemies are scorched. Like you already know, our melee makes enemies scorched. So if you don't have your dodge, for any reason, your melee is going to charge your dodge. So far, our melee can give us our dodge back, and with Gambler's Dodge, our dodge can give us our melee instantly. We've also got Echo of Torches, which makes you and nearby allies radiant with powered melee attacks. And Echo of Searing, defeating scorching targets gives melee energy, and as an added bonus, also gives plus 10 recovery. Before I explain the synergy of this, I want to quickly touch on the exotic for this build, the Assassin's Cowl. It makes you go invis every time you get a powered melee kill or a finisher on an enemy. So let me walk you through what happens with this build. When you melee and that melee kills an enemy, you get 5 things to happen. 1. You create Scorched, which charges your dodge and burns targets over time. 2. You go invisible. 3. You make yourself and your allies radiant, which means they do more damage with their weapons. 4. You charge your super frag grenade, which does a lot of damage, and you get your melee back instantly for getting that kill. If you can see what's going on here, before when you meleeed pre-Solar 3.0, these many things weren't happening, but with the fragment aspects, the way the whole new subclass is constructed, all this stuff happens all at once. Now, what happens if you miss your melee? Since you probably have your dodge, you could just weaken something with your weapon, finish it to go invis, get close to the enemy and dodge, and you'll get your melee right back. So what if the enemy is super tanky and you feel like with the new melee you have, you're still not going to be able to kill the enemy? What I usually use here is the super fraggle combo. Solar ability or weapon kills charges the super frag. If you've been doing this build correctly, at this point that should be charged for you. You could throw it at the enemy, shoot it out the air, and that should do a lot of damage. You would still have your regular solar grenade, so you can throw that on the enemy as well to do more damage. At this point, if the enemy is still too healthy for you to finish him off with your melee, now's the time for you to pull out your guns and just use your guns for a little bit, because I want us to be able to spam our abilities here, but there's not all the enemies are squishy enough for you to be able to kill them with just your abilities only. So my choice of weapon is the Taraba. Basically, throughout all of this, if you've been taking damage, you'll be charging up the Revenous Beast perk for the Taraba, which allows your gun to fire faster and reload quicker. If it's fully charged, you could just unleash the beast and boom, you can blow your load on the enemy. If not, it's probably close to being topped off, and you could just shoot the enemy for a bit to get the Ravenous Beast, and then you could just unleash on it. So let me tell you a few secrets about this build. The key to it is never losing your melee and your dodge at the same time. You always want to keep one of those two. Your grenade, you could use it as often as you want, but the melee and the dodge, you always want to have one of those two because they can both replenish the other ability. Now let's quickly go over the mods for this build. I already discussed this in the previous video, so if you want to understand what each mod does in depth, you can check the other video for that. I'm going to put a link to it in the description. We're going to be using double well maker with bountiful wells and well of ordnance with well of life to be able to keep us safe while we're running around doing this. In case we lose our invisibility or something goes wrong, well of life is an insane mod for you to be able to recharge your health. If you feel like you've perfected this build though, instead of using well of life, you can go ahead and use a font of might. Essentially, whenever you do have to shoot your gun, because you're picking up so many elemental wells, your gun's going to be doing 25% more damage to all the enemies. For stats, we're going to prioritize mobility and discipline. Basically, the mobility is so that we can get our dodge back as quickly as possible, so that even if we make a mistake and we lose our melee and our dodge, it wouldn't take too long for our melee to return. And we're going to be using discipline because we don't need strength anymore, because we're always going to get our melee back through other sources. So we want to spam stuff. The only other ability left is our grenade, so we run maximum discipline so that that's charging as quickly as possible. So my people, that's the build. You guys could stay invis for as long as there's enemies around you for you to kill. For the next video, I'll show you how to make the Warlock build with the new Solar 3.0 information that we now have. I believe that one's going to be insane too, because I've already started testing that. Thank you guys so much for watching the video today. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.